Hi, this is Brad Straley with Jacksonville for Life. Today we have with us a pro-life and adoption speaker since 1995. She's an attorney, wife, and mother of 5, author of the Heritage House 76 pamphlet, Conceived in Rape, A Story of Hope. Honored by the Feminists for Life, she's appeared on CBN's The 700 Club, Good Morning America, CNN, CBS News, Canada's 100 Huntley Street, EWTN's Life on the Rock, and Catholic TV's This Is the Day. Her story featured in Glamour magazine, Marie Claire magazine, and on the syndicated program Extra with her birth mother. She served as vice chair of Crisis Pregnancy Center for 2 years and on the advisory board of the Michigan Nurses for Life. She currently serves on the advisory board of Crossroads Pregnancy Center. Today we have with us Rebecca Kiesling. Rebecca, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No, it is our pleasure. A little bit out, if I may ask, you were adopted near when you were born, correct?
Yeah, and my parents got me when I was 6 weeks old.
When did you first learn that you were adopted?
I was 18 when I found out the details of my story, but I first learned when I was adopted when I was like 9 or 10 years old. I think that's when it clicked what it really meant that I had a birth mother, because my parents told me I was adopted and I didn't really understand what it meant. I kind of thought I was adopted instead of being born, and sort of that pregnancy didn't really apply to my life. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but they would tell me how I was chosen, and then I know at least by the age of 9, I think, I understood that I had a birth mother somewhere, and I wanted to meet her.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in at such a young age. Now, your adopted parents said that you were chosen. What was their relationship with Christ at that time?
Atheist Jews.
Okay.
I was adopted and raised in a Jewish family. I went to 5 years of Hebrew school. I was bat mitzvahed, but God was irrelevant in our household.
So when you learned that you were adopted, when did you approach your adoptive parents saying that you wanted to learn more about, your birth parents, why you were placed for adoption?
Sure. Well, my parents told me what they knew, and all they knew was that she was a single mom or going through a divorce, and that I had a older brother and older sister. They didn't know anything else. And I just kind of thought maybe, it was the Vietnam War. Maybe my father went off to the war and either was killed or just, disappeared, or, she didn't want to raise me while he was there, or it was also like the hippie era, so maybe I was like a love child. I mean, and I just still, even though I knew that I had a brother and a sister, I just kind of assumed still that she was young, and that wasn't the case. She was like 31 when I was born. I learned at 18 that she had been raped.
How did you learn of that, Rebecca?
With my non-identifying information from the court. It had all kinds of details about her, except for her name, but for him it just said that he was Caucasian and of large build. And of course, I thought that sounds like a police description, right. And I asked my caseworker, was my mom raped? And she told me, yeah, and she said, I didn't want to tell you.
I can imagine. So you're adopted, you're a child of 18, you learn that a little bit about your birth mother, and then you find out that your father was a rapist. Mind if I ask what was going through your mind at 18?
Yeah, I instantly felt targeted and devalued by our society. I felt so ugly, and I felt like I was in a position where I would have to justify my own existence to the world. That, I knew instantly that there were people who felt that I shouldn't be alive and that I should have been aborted. And I knew all the horrible things that people say. I mean, we get called things like demon seed, and that was by a pastor. At a pastor's luncheon, Bishop Paul Morton Jr., at a luncheon of 2000, he was recorded as saying, demon seed, not what God created. Sean Hannity called us an evil seed and talked about the sins of the father being passed on, And were called horrible reminder. People even say, like, we're tainting the gene pool. I mean, all sorts of things. So, I mean, I grew up in a Jewish family, like I said, knowing that a lot of my relatives had been, my parents' ancestors had been killed in the Holocaust. Their grandparents and aunts and uncles had been killed in the Holocaust. And I grew up knowing that there was such hatred in the world that people would be targeted and devalued like that. And I knew, like, how the Nazis, like, treated the Jews and what they called them and being inferior and all of that. But that was in days long ago. And, you know, we live in a society that's supposed to be progressive, and people don't think that way anymore and don't treat people that way anymore, but they still do when it comes to the child conceived in rape. And I felt it. I felt that sting.
Yeah, sorry, I'm shocked to hear conservative commentary and pastors to say something that's so unbiblical. No, did you get a chance to meet your birth mother?
I did when I was 19, and she was thrilled to meet me. We had a glorious reunion, but I asked her she told me all of the details of being raped. I mean, it was horrible. She was abducted at knife point by a serial rapist. When I asked her about abortion, she told me that if abortion had been legal, she would have aborted me. And she just said to me, "You don't know what it was like." And she maintained that position for 6 years until she changed her mind about abortion. When my niece was in an unplanned pregnancy with her first great-grandchild, a teen pregnancy with her first great-grandchild. And now today, decades later, we're both thankful that we were both protected. But she actually went to 2 illegal abortions, and I was almost aborted. And the only reason why she backed out was the conditions and the fear for her own safety. And so I literally owe my birth to the law being there to protect me, to people who cared enough and recognized that mine was a life worth saving.
That it is. Going back to you're 19, and she tells you what had happened and her thought about wanting you to be aborted. How did you feel? I mean, what was going through your mind at that point?
I felt completely betrayed. I mean, for me, growing up, I felt like a marionette. My parents told me that there was, you know, this lawyer, and I was adopted through a lawyer, and they told me that they had tried for years and years to get pregnant, and I knew that they only adopted me because they had to, because they couldn't have children otherwise, but I knew that they wouldn't have wanted me if they didn't have to. And this is why, actually, I ended up, like, when I learned my identity in Christ, I decided I wanted to adopt, like, first. So we have 2 adopted sons, you know, not second best, last resort. But I sort of would tell people that I felt like, you know, a puppet, and there's all these people pulling strings on my life, and I've kind of felt like that feather in the movie Forrest Gump, where I'm just floating along, and I didn't have any roots. And I remember seeing the movie Roots, and, you know, I thought this would bring meaning to my life if I find my roots. I could find my value, identity, where I fit into this world. And instead, it was even worse. You know, she was supposed to be, you know, like the main root, right, that was going to help me find meaning, and all of a sudden she's telling me how she would have plucked me out, you know? And so there goes my root system, right?
Right.
And I was able to change the heart of my parents. When I was 18, my dad told me he was pro-choice, basically. And I instantly challenged him, you know, and he changed his mind about abortion right then and there.
That's great.
But I wasn't able to change her mind like that. And ultimately, it wasn't even me who changed her mind. It was really, you know, her first great-grandchild.
But you probably planted the seed, and it just took 6 years to bloom.
Yeah, and now, I mean, she called me on my birthday a few years ago to wish me happy birthday and to tell me that my grandmother had died on my birthday. I had been born on her wedding anniversary, and we had both been to visit her together just a couple weeks before. And we had a long heart-to-heart. I told her I was going to fly home from visiting my in-laws and that I would be there for her. And at the end of a long conversation, we were about to hang up, and she stopped me and she said, Rebecca, I just want to say, I'm so glad I had you. And, that was, of course, the best birthday gift ever. More than 4 decades after she had sought to end my life, and more than 2 decades after she had been telling me it should have been my right, she was able to speak those words to me. And really, because we were protected, not because, you were lucky, no, we were protected from that horror.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that it took over 4 decades to hear something so, in my mind, God-given, basic.
Yeah. I mean, we have a very close relationship today. We developed a mother-daughter relationship over these years, and, really out of all 3 of her children, well, the 2 others are estranged from her. Mm-hmm. And, I've always been the one who honors her. And I bring her healing.
This is Brad Straley with Jacksonville for Life. Today we're speaking with Rebecca Kiesling, conceived in rape, who was a pro-life and adoption speaker since 1995. We are going to take a short break. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Brian Kelly. I'm an adoption attorney with Shorstein and Kelly. And if you are interested in adopting a child, or if you are pregnant and don't know where to turn, we can help you. The first step would be to give us a call at 348-6400 or check out our website at adoption-usa.com. Adoption-usa.com. Thanks, and I know we can help you.
Hi, this is Brad Straley with Jacksonville for Life. Today we have with us Rebecca Kiesling, a pro-life speaker, adoption speaker, and a victim where her mother was raped and Rebecca was conceived in rape. We've been talking about you growing up and learning about what had happened to your mother. You had mentioned before the break that you felt devalued and you needed to sit there and justify your existence to society.
Yeah.
Do we do that to those who have been conceived in rape?
Absolutely. I mean, I literally received an email from somebody saying that I'm having really great difficulty with knowing that you exist in this world. It just bothers me so much that you're here. And she said, tell me something about yourself and, why it is that that justifies you putting your mother through such a horrible thing. Like, as if I was raping her, Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre. We're treated horribly, and, we're not only attacked by the pro-abortion crowd, but also the pro-life crowd. There's a Gallup poll that says that 60% of pro-lifers make the rape exception, and I find that it's easy to change their hearts and minds. God used me to change the heart of Governor Rick Perry and Newt Gingrich during their presidential campaign, and I regularly am able to change, hearts and minds, but it's crazy that even their pro-life leaders will engage in child sacrifice by supporting legislation with rape exceptions.
Why do you think that is, Rebecca?
Well, they'll say that they're pragmatic, but really it's not pragmatic. The most pragmatic thing to do is what Rights Life in Michigan does, which is to say that, we would rather protect unborn children than mediocre politicians. We have some of the best pro-life legislators in the country because they only support ones that are 100% pro-life. Rights Life Michigan is the #1 single-issue PAC in the state of Michigan. And people know that a pro-life vote means something. You're not throwing it away, that something's actually going to get done. And really the litmus test for knowing whether a legislator really cares about ending abortion is whether they make a rape exception or not. Because the ones who don't are the ones who really want to end abortion. In Congress, you can hardly get anything done because they keep propping up mediocre politicians who don't care about ending abortion. They just want the pro-life votes and get elected.
Yeah, I've seen that over the years. Now, you said that you find it fairly easy to win over the pro-life folks. Is that something that we can do? Is that something you can share with us, how this is done?
Yeah. Actually, we have a 5-state study on messaging. It's the only study ever done on this issue. And this is after Aiken and Murdoch lost, when Aiken said some awkward things, and, Murdoch's words were twisted. I had spoken in Congress, and I was told, it's got to be research-based. Republican Party doesn't want us talking about this issue unless it's research-based. So Right to Life of Michigan, Georgia Right to Life, and Personhood commissioned this study, and it was online, interactive. People got paid to do it, and they had to rate the messaging, and they had to watch videos or see, read things or look at images and memes and things like that. And what we found is that you can significantly sway people's opinion. In 1 hour, you could significantly sway people's opinion on this issue, particularly people who said they're pro-life with an exception. It's very easy to sway them. And number one, you put a face to the issue, invoke the story of a woman who was conceived in rape or who became pregnant by rape. And then number two, and the best argument, pure argument, is that in a civilized society, we don't punish innocent children for someone else's crime. That's just unjust, that you punish rapists, not babies. That resonates with people. And if you can combine the two, even better. So if you can say, well, look, I know this woman, Rebecca, who was conceived in rape, and I don't believe that she deserves the death penalty for the crimes of her biological father.
That is good to know. Sounds straightforward. I think we need to try that here in Florida.
Yeah. When I was in law school, we learned something, legal research and writing, called IROC, Issue, Rule, Application, Conclusion. You have to be able to state the issue, the rule, apply it to your case at hand, and conclude. And you could be the best legal scholar and totally know the law and all the arguments, but if you don't know how to apply it to your case in court, you will lose. And I think that there's a lot of people who know the rules in the pro-life movement. It's great to be equipped, educated on the science, on the philosophical arguments, legal, biblical, sociological, all of that. That's great. But I think a lot of people are missing out on applying those principles to real stories, because it's real people that pierce the heart in ways in which arguments cannot.
Right.
I know some people, they put a face to the issue by using images of unborn children or images of aborted children. And there's a lot of debate in the pro-life movement over that. But, you can also put a face to the issue by showing real people who survived abortions, like Melissa Oden.
Right.
Or stories of real people who were conceived in rape, mothers from rape, so that you humanize that child, so it's no longer just a concept.
Is it true that most women who become pregnant out of sexual assault do not want an abortion? And, as a matter of fact, are actually worse off after an abortion?
Yeah. You ask most people, what percentage do you think abort after rape? People think it's 90, 95%. That's a myth. It's actually half the rate of the average unplanned pregnancy. Over 50% abort in unplanned pregnancies. Rape victims, 15 to 25%. And it's because they express they don't want more violence in their body after having already been traumatized. Violence does not bring more healing, it brings more pain. So rape victims are 4 times more likely to die within the next year after the abortion. They have a higher murder rate because it helps perpetuate an abusive situation, a higher rate of suicide, drug overdose. We know that rapists, child molesters, sex traffickers love abortion. The abortion clinic is their best friend. I just suddenly thought of something just crossed my mind, because you're from Jacksonville, Florida. Years ago, there was a detective from Jacksonville, Florida, who reached out to me. And he told me he had never told anybody else that he learned he was conceived in rape. And he was in the sex crimes unit in Jacksonville, Florida. And he told me about one day that he got a call to go pick up evidence at an abortion clinic Most of the time the evidence is, just destroyed, never reported, and that's it. But this particular case, they preserved, the evidence, which is the unborn child who was conceived in rape. And he said that they brought that baby out to him in a paper bag and whatever else it was in, a Whirlpack or whatever. But he said that this rage just grew inside of him, that this is how they treated the baby, no dignity. And he just said, he told them, you come back and you get something more dignified. You find a box or something to put this baby in. And they did. And then he had those remains in the backseat of his car, and he said that the ride back to the evidence room was the most difficult ride of his life, and he just broke down crying. And he just realized, this could have been my fate.
Wow.
And, can you imagine? Oh.
I can't.
Yeah.
The few minutes we have left, Rebecca, I wanted to ask, are there support groups for others conceived in rape?
Yeah, actually, we have a network of nearly over 600 conceived in rape, mothers from rape, conceived in incest, post-abortive from rape, birth mothers from rape, and women who miscarried. And we have separate groups for each. So we have a group of 55 plus women conceived in rape, over 40 men conceived in rape in their own group. We have a group of over 125 women who became pregnant by rape, who are raising their children, a couple dozen birth mothers from rape in that group. And then we also have regional groups. So we have a Save the One Florida, and it's all people from Florida who are conceived in rape, mothers from rape, or given a challenging prenatal diagnosis and they had been told to abort, or their parents had been told to abort them, because we, Save the One, my organization, specializes in defending all of the so-called hard cases in the abortion debate. So we want people regionally connected for activism so that they can help, be there to testify together in legislatures. Maybe they could, do a 40 Days for Life campaign, or do your state March for Life together, or they can be part of a panel. We have an event in Atlanta coming up in a couple of weeks, and there'll be a whole bunch of us there for our annual speaker training retreat, and then we'll do a community event that night in Roswell, I believe it is. But yeah, we want people connected. Nobody should have to feel alone in this.
How can someone that's listening learn more about the organization, or if need be, get in touch with one of the regional offices, Rebecca?
It's Save the One, and that's the number one, not the word one, SaveTheOne.com. And that comes from the parable of the lost sheep, where, Jesus talked about not despising the little ones, and how he said that in the same way our Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. He left the 99 to save the one, the Good Shepherd. And on Facebook, Save the One. So just, message us through there and we'll get you connected. We also collaborate with pro-life organizations so that our stories can be utilized. And, there's been billboard campaigns with us, and memes or TV commercials that have been run with our stories, and however you want to collaborate, we're happy to make our stories available.
We appreciate it. One last question before we let you go. Do you believe the rapist is your creator?
I actually found out who he is through Ancestry DNA 2 years ago, and I actually met my half-brother 3 weeks ago, and my half-brother's awesome. He's 2 months older, but I have no interest in being the rapist still. He was abusive to my brother as well growing up. But, he's not my creator. I know now that I was created by God in his image for a purpose, which was not to be aborted.
That's right.
And that it's in the spirit of adoption that we're all called to be God's children through Christ. And that I'm grafted into the family tree. That now I can embrace the Jewish identity because we're all grafted in through Christ.
Yep.
And my life was spared for a purpose, and that's to go back and save others, not to be selfish.
Amen. I hate to interrupt, but we are out of time. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us today and for all you do to promote a culture of life. We'd like to thank the station for being faithful to his word in this opportunity today. And thank you for listening. More information about local pro-life efforts, please visit us at jacksonvilleforlife.org. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. And until next time, do something, say babies in Jacksonville.